We're talking waterfowl ducks and planning and managing and creating that duck hole on a property. And I'm gonna tell you, doing land sales and looking at property and listing, you talk about you can a big pendulum swing on property value. You can create some real value in a property by adding. If you've got a waterfowl structure, a duck impoundment, it's dollars.
It is.
It adds some value,
especially if it produces.
Yeah, because look, duck hunting, of all what things we do, it costs money to grow big deer. Turkey it's great to have
Random,
a proper turkey, but man, ducks,
people are crazy.
You gotta
about
have
duck,
them. It's real specific about what you need for ducks. So,
and I don't know if it started, Brent, in the Delta. That's big. West of where we live at, and that was always
Mississippi Flyway.
That Mississippi Flyway, duck hunting so big. Arkansas, Stuttgart, but even around here, and even places, Alabama and different spots, a small duck hole gives that guy a little something else to do besides chasing deer.
Yeah, well, it's something he can do, and
he can do
more and more. Look, if we look back at our late teens, early 20s when we were running around, that duck hunting captures that age
that
group.
Boy in
duck hunting captures you at that age more than anything else. And there's some inherent dangers and risk around duck hunting too.
Right.
And then you compound that with the competition, because
you talk about waterways.
Most duck hunting access is public on navigable rivers. So you've got that added element. You're running rivers in the dark. If you can create a place to duck hunt on private property, a property you manage, there's a whole lot of value there that's even hard to measure, but there is a measurable, quantifiable addition to your property value, and we've seen it. And the other neat thing about it, what I've seen specifically on a few properties up Mid-South Resource Management, they put in a pit blind over on Hollis's place,
right? And
we were looking at it, and a lot of cases you're talking about converting an area of a property that maybe it's got bad drainage, maybe it doesn't produce, if not
no
good
timber
for food
value.
plots, no timber value. It's financially maybe a liability to a property. Well, you can take that and flip that and turn it into a value add area.
And a lot of times those areas are beaver infested, and you putting in a structure, a levied structure, or
you
push them
control.
Up, you can control it, and you got a reason to go down to, to get the drainage where it's free. Because one thing about an impoundment, it's called an impoundment for two reasons. It catches water, but you got to be able to release the water too.
Yeah, I thought it was because we got in there in the winter and we impounded them ducks when they came in.
We have before now.
Yeah,
no
look, you created
that.
one, and that's a good the one which we may not get too specific about where it is, but the one I'm thinking about, like you had 3 fields and this one just didn't drain as well.
That's
right.
You
had some drainage issues on it anyway. It was less fertility. I think they had pulled some topsoil off of it maybe.
That's right. We leveled it. So I
just
made a pool out. I made a duck pond out of it, and I always wanted one. I'd done them about years ago when I was doing some management stuff on some other properties, and those other people had.
And so that's something you had done for other landowners before,
yeah. Mm-hmm. I'd built several. I probably built 7, 8, I guess, in my life, and help manage them and plant them, and kind of run water pumps and pumping them up, and so it was something that I wanted to do, different and add to my portfolio to see if I could do it, and I'll tell you, it's really neat.
Hey, it's been fun, that one up there. The one I'm thinking about, it's been fun to tag along and help out and just see how the evolution of it.
That's right. And you can't put them in the hills. People know that. You can't put one up in the top. But low-lying areas, and most of the time, if you've got hunting land, you got a little old low-lying area somewhere. And if you've got a way to get the water and not, you really don't want to depend on
runoff,
rainfall, but a lot of people have to.
Yeah,
and it works out well. You just under the gun of
and that's site specific too. Depends on how much how many acres are draining to what you got.
Right.
So
now I do like the one that I have. So I do have one that you have to pump water in, and then I do have one that you have to just catch water.
Yeah,
and but it's very easy to catch it. It's at the end of a couple drains, and I took a dozer and cut some drains into it. So any amount of water we can get on a I say a flash flood or a hard rain event, I can catch all that that top water to get it off there.
So there are a few things that are specific. There's a few things you need to know, and like anything else, timing is important.
Timing is big.
Time is important,
and we're crawling up on. We were going to do a waterfowl one, but we're crawling up on to the season. June, July, August. That's when you want to be planting your millets or your corn or your grain sorghum, whatever choice that you want to put.
Yeah, the timing for this is different than your other wildlife planting. So it's midsummer.
That's right.
And so you back up, and actually, if you go to opening duck season or wherever you are, when you start getting ducks, when you start seeing that migration and those freezes and ducks start showing up, you back up from there to when you need to be planting. But then,
that's right.
Since you're planting wet areas with standing water, you got to back up from there to get the water off of it to dry it enough to where you can get in it.
Control it. Because we've done it when I worked for the Corps of Engineers. We'd go in there with dynamite and we would blow all the dams out and make a mud flat. Okay, that's probably one of your easiest things you can do if you've got an old slough or an old where beavers have dammed your stuff up. All you got to do is go in there and blow the dams, drain it, and you got that mud flat. Then you come in there with some millet and plant on top of it. Now, timing and rating of seed is very critical. It ain't just go get 50 pounds and throw it right here. That millet is very, very critical. You don't want to overseed it too heavy, because if you do, it's not going to make seed. It's going to compete against each other. It's going to lay over.
Yeah.
So you really, it's some things that we hope to explain today that'll kind of help you not have a failure, because I hear a lot of people say, man, I planted it was so good and green and then gone. But then you got other things to watch for, and we'll get into that. Army worms.
Yeah, so take a start to finish. So
let's go to start.
When you start.
So I'm prepping right now to get my places ready to plant millet. Okay, so we're at 1st of June in Mississippi. So you think of the South, not much different if you go all the way across the little traverse there. But you take you got to control the water. So if you got water on it now, you need to get the water off of it. Okay, whether it be letting it dry up, blowing some beaver dams.
If you got a control
carrying a track hoe in there, digging a small ditch, let it drain out. I mean, it's very easy. You can do that. Plug them up, and even go to maybe a little small water cooking structure. A little water control structure, and they're not real expensive.
And that's sort of a pipe, like a flange or a pipe you can put in a levee, and it's got boards. You put boards in there to block it up and
what
control
you
the water level with a number of boards.
You could shoot it yourself, or get somebody come in from NRCS or an engineer.
Put a transit on
it. And just put a transit on it and shoot kind of what your water level you want it to be. Now, I like 18 inches and down for water level, no more than 2 feet, if you can control that. I know that's hard to control. You're always going to have a beaver run or something, but, you think about a duck. He's, what's a duck, this big, a mallard? So you think about him standing on his butt, and they feed like this if they're feeding under the water. So you can't, if you got the food too deep, he can't get to it. And they're bottom feeders. They feed a lot off the bottom, and how they do it, I don't understand it. It's really amazing. But they smell that food and they go after it. They take it. So the depth of the water is a big thing, and plus you don't want to be, neck deep trying to wade through water and you dip water in. I mean, everybody trips on something. And
the perfect level seems to be just higher than what your knee boots will give you, but low on your waist.
And you think about if we're going to go from, let's talk about two different ones. Let's talk about a beaver type impoundment, Brent, and then let's go to a man-made impoundment. Let's kind of talk about a beaver
with
impoundment.
Control.
Because that gives both of our listeners, if that's all you got, that's our limiting factor.
Well, you may have multiple.
That's right. And so remember this: it's hard to make a duck come to a place that he don't want to come to. I mean, that's so. Now, if everybody wants to kill mallards, pintails, that stuff, but maybe just a good wood duck shooting, them are fun too, is what you want to add to your place. So all this stuff is in correlation. I don't know what your flyway is. You need to do that part of your homework. How we always tell you, hey, read up, ask questions, do some stuff. Hey, I got a neighbor that shoots ducks every year, so that means you may be close enough to some type of flyway.
And most of them
whether it's
close
a refuge,
to some river system.
Yeah, that's right. A river system, a refuge, a bottom, something that's drawing those ducks. you're going to do better off than going in the middle of a pine thicket, finding a beaver slough and putting them in there. But now I do know people that, over around Millport and some different areas, they go in and they shoot wood ducks and have as good a shoots as anybody, but it's just one Pacific duck you're going to get. You're going to get wood ducks in there. And it's just according to what you want to do and how much money you want to spend. But so what I try to do is go in there and, like I said, get the water off of it, okay? So whether you dig a ditch, let the beavers dam it back up, blow the beaver dam, let them dam back up, whatever, that may be all you want to do. So once we do that, we let all the water off, okay? So, you got these phones now that's got these OnX and HuntX, apps. You can kind of get an acreage of how many acres you got. Yep. Don't kind of be.
You can take OnX and
kind of be very specific to know. Specific. Don't add, because there you go. It goes back to that rating of that seed, that millet, because you can very, very crowd it out, overseed it. So you're gonna hear me say that several times during this podcast. But so go in, all right, just so you got areas that's got smart weeds, it's got some different stuff, and sometimes they come there naturally.
Yeah.
And you got a lot of grasses and sedges that ducks do like, smartweed, nut sedges, barnyard grass, a lot of natural grasses. All you need is to get the water off of it and let it come back. Now, millets.
Yeah, because it's going to be in that seed bank.
Yeah.
All those make a lot of seeds.
Right.
They're big reseeders.
That's right. Millet is not that expensive, so you can get it. It's fairly affordable.
Yeah, and Japanese millet is one you can submerge. Right. It does well with the water.
Mud flat, what we call a mud flat. So once you get into this thing, you will know. You got to know your property, but if you can't get a tractor in it in a week or so, then you might as well look to manage it as a mud flat, okay? Because if you can get a tractor in, you might get around there and scratch it a little bit. You don't have to disc it daylight stuff, but scratch it up.
Yeah, and that goes back to also the time getting the water off of it, give it time to dry up, so you can get in there. Maybe you can get ATV on it if you dry it up.
So mine usually take, and I've got mine are leveled, so I will I'll drain the water off them, and it'll take a couple weeks before I can get on mine. As far
it takes a while to dry them up
to ride on them. So once you do that, get the water off, kind of figure out how many acres you got. I go in with a heavy shot of glyphosate, okay, right off the bat, and I burn it down like I would a crop. I burn down whatever's there. And I kind of look at my water line and say, okay, I see water's going to come up to here. So I'm going to spray that stuff and burn it down. And to give you, a lot of things that people don't pay attention, they'll go to Tractor Supply, the co-op, and get them a 2.5 gallon jug of Roundup. Well, they're liable to pour way too much or not enough into their tank. So I'm going to break it down on a 50-gallon tank, which that would go in the back of a Ranger. A 100-gallon tank, which would go back behind a tractor. But you're using, if you're using a 50-gallon tank, a half of a 2.5-gallon jug is significant as far as killing what you need to kill. I use a whole 2.5-gallon jug, Brent, when I use a 100-gallon spray rig, okay? Mm-hmm. And then, one thing about Roundup, it's going to be a foliar type, chemical, so it's going to kill whatever it touches. So you can't. Let me put it this way: you can't overspray it. And I like to really have a good burn down to kill anything that I can get, because once you do plant a millet in there, you can't control the grass. So
I keep mine pretty simple. I got a 15-gallon spray I run on a 4-wheeler.
Right.
That's good. You figure the weight, 15 gallons is heavy on a 4-wheeler, right. So I do an ounce to the gallon. I do like a 16 ounce for that 15 gallon.
Man, that'd be And then you want to and one thing about glyphosate, it's really the cheapest of the chemical bases. So if you did it a little bit hotter, it responds pretty good. And it has its own surfactant really built in. But look, you add a little oil in there to it, it does a little better. A little cooking oil or some different things, some dishwasher liquid. It makes it hotter. So I'll go in there and do that. It usually takes 7-10 days for that stuff to burn down really good.
Yeah, and you made a good point. I don't mean to make you lose your train of thought, but once that millet starts coming back, it's grass. You can't manage the grass in there anymore with the herbicide because the millet won't tolerate it.
No, because what you do, you spray it and then you kill it.
Because that herbicide will kill it too. It's the grass.
We don't have a Roundup variety of millet out on the market. It's just a millet. We got several, and I'm going to get to them in a minute. The ones that we really like to use that put a pretty good seed head out. But, so you get to that point, And if you've got to manage a mud flat, you could go in there with a hand seeder, 4-wheeler seeder, or tractor and if you can get it in there with a tractor. Now, if you can get in there with a tractor, you make it scratch it up a little bit.
Some folks fly it in.
They do. People do fly a lot of it. Yeah.
Waterfowl Impoundments, they fly seed in, drop it in a crop duster.
We did it with the Corps of Engineers for years. We would blow them out and we'd go fly the seed every year in there because you can't. A lot of times those beaver ponds are in the middle of a place with no access. Yeah. And no
even
access
if it
to
would
get a
drive
tractor.
enough to hold the tractor up, you can't get one in it.
You can't get a disc in there. But I
do and logs and stumps.
I do like to scratch one just because of soil contact with the seed, soil seed contact. So scratching one up, section hair, or turn your disc straight up and do it, because you want a good firm bed.
And there may be some wetland things about putting the tractor on. Some of them, I don't know.
No, you can do your own under silviculture stuff.
I got you.
So getting in there and getting it planted, and then once you get it planted, don't think you can walk away from it. So I want
a tough time of year for new.
I want to walk this. I want to really walk this through. For some reason, especially in the middle of the woods, you're going to get armyworms, and they're prone to certain areas, and they love fresh grasses that come up in wet spots, and they will absolutely wipe you out
quick.
Now, if you catch them, you can spray them, kill them in 5 minutes, but if you wait a week, you're gone. And really what they do that damage to that young plant, and they eat it all the way down, and it's really so. You got several options. After you plant it, make sure you got a good stand coming back, and you'll see it because it'll be solid green, little grass is coming back. But try to go every 3 or 4 days. Go try and talk to neighbors. Just see, are you seeing any? Start talking. Ask people at golf courses. If you're a golf player, ask them, hey, you seen any armyworms here? Because when they start flying in, they come in on wind currents, and when the moth that lays the armyworm egg, when they get here, I mean, they're looking for.
It don't take long.
They don't take long, and then they have them, and then like their names, they're built like.
A lot of times, birds are the way you'll see them.
Yeah,
the birds key on them. It's kind of like fishing out in the Gulf. You see the birds, you know there's fish there.
So I've been planting a duck pond for 10 years, and I've sprayed it every year for 10 years when I have millet, just because of armyworm. So I keep a spray rig handy, keep it ready to go, and as soon as I see them, I get up there and go to spraying. And that's a big thing, because what it does, if they eat that plant up when it's little, then you're done. You're just gonna go out there and say, "Oh, millet didn't work," and no, armyworms got you. And a lot of people make that mistake about planting it, and it's going doing their rest of their summer, their summer projects,
travel ball and skiing.
And going to the beach and going, everywhere
working a job.
That's right. But so check them. If you're going in with a buddy, most time on duck hunting, you got a couple buddies. Hey, set a time. Hey, look, Tom, you go check. Yes, every week you go check that thing. Every 3 or 4 days, you go check it, especially when it's vulnerable, when it's little. Now, when it gets on up, I've noticed when it gets up a little bigger, Brent, say 1.5 feet, 2 foot tall, they don't hit it as hard. But now they will. They can. It's just according to how many comes in on the wind currents. But armyworms are the number one problem for duck ponds in the middle of the woods. So you just remember that. Hey, but the stuff that you kill them with, it kills them right then. I mean, when it hits them, they're on the ground and they're gone. And really, some of that stuff, and we'll put it up on.
Can you spray it as a preventative, or they got to be there before you?
Well, you can. There are some stuff that when it gets a certain height, you can spray it for 2 weeks, and when they bite that, it kills them dead as a doornail. So that's some stuff that's out there. We'll put it up on I don't have the names for it, 'cause like I said, you have so many generics now. You can name it one thing and it's called something else. But it's a really, really good to, especially if you're putting the money in to plant all this stuff, you need to go check it. And that's the thing. When me and Brent, put some of this stuff, he'll go up there and look. Well, I go up there and you've helped spray maybe 4 up there on it. And so you got to keep an eyeball on it. But look, once you do that, like anything else, once you get a good stand established, and the millets that I like to plant, you got about 3 or 4 of them, but you got you got your brown top millet, which is easy. A lot of times people plant it for doves. People don't think about ducks, but it really does. It's very easy to plant. You're probably 20 pounds to the acre on it, and you can throw it right on top of the ground. Rain beats it in. I got, Jap millet. It's got a 60-day maturity date, 65 to 90. A lot of people use Jap because it's so voracious as far as it can grow in, I've seen it growing up in forks of logs and everything else. Yeah. So it's very easy. You got a golden millet out there that's a pretty good millet. It's a 60 to 70 day to mature, and you want to do it about 25 pounds to the acre, and that's I'm giving you broadcast rates, okay? So and that is very critical, y'all. When I tell you this, do not overseed it like you would something else. It does not do well. You won't, because what you're wanting that seed to do is have enough room where it can produce a lot of the top. It's so different than a deer field. We want to plant heavy in a deer field because we want to produce
browse and the leaves,
the leaves and the tonnage, right when it's little.
Yeah, you're trying to go to yield on this.
We're trying to go yield,
yep.
and we're trying to produce as many seed heads as we can, so the ducks will have something to eat all the way through the winter.
That's important. That's important to point out. I don't know.
Because you think about November, December, January is when you're going to be feeding them.
Yeah, a lot of people may not think about that. You're trying to get not the plant necessarily.
Yeah, you don't care about that.
You're trying to get that thing to yield.
And I would rather you have it a little bit light on the planting side, but have really good seed heads, than to be thick and have no seed heads.
Have a lot of pretty green plants, but don't put out enough seed because of the competition.
They do 150, 200 pounds of nitrogen. Once that plant gets established, you go in there, and it's just like anything else. If you're going to go through the time to plant it right, check for armyworm, spend that time, go ahead and kick that fertilizer to it and really, really make you some seed, because that works really well. Chihuahua is another millet. I like a Chihuahua. It grows real tall, and it's got a real long seed head. It's hard to get a hold of, but now it's got a 120-day maturity because it's almost like a poor man's corn.
Yeah, I think specialty seed over here in Mississippi, they bring out Chihuahua millet. Yep.
And that Chihuahua's good. It's got a big seed head on it. I'm going to plant some Chihuahua.
Specialty's on. They're on social media a lot. They're a good follow too.
They're a good
specialty seed company.
I tell you, I've planted a lot of that Chihuahua. And it does.
Brian really Hollis, he plants a lot of. He's a big Chihuahua millet. He believes in it.
It's good. It's got a lot of tonnage. Corn, hard to beat corn. But it's time consumed. It's very expensive. I mean, you're gonna spend $500-600 an acre on corn. Bottom line, and that's not counting $1 in your time, because you're gonna have to spray corn 2 or 3 times. You're gonna have to fertilize corn at least once. If you do it right, maybe twice. 10 acres of corn, I just spend $1,000 fertilizing it. I mean, that's just what it's going to cost you, and you have to kind of get it out there early.
Yeah,
you got
to pull the water off. Weeks. We talked earlier about backing it up and counting those days. Right. You got to get even earlier with that.
And I think and there's some different millets like Bobby and them's got a brand that they call they got a waterfowl little mix. It's really, really good. So it's a biologic, So it's really a time game.
Yeah.
And if you're going to spend, we can't get our time back, y'all. But if you're going to spend it, the time to do it, it's not really expensive. But you just got to figure out what your time is. But like I said, get in there, get that mud flat. If you can't disc it, you'll notice when you take the water off a wetland, it'll start cracking and doing its stuff. Go ahead and get in there. Watch your rain. One thing about this, you need the rains. They say. Some people can flush them that can control water. You can't control water in a beaver pond. But if you've got 5, like you said, Brent, if you got 5 beaver ponds, and just say if you put them all together, they make 4 acres, 3 or 4 acres, you're not out but 2 or 3 bags of seed. And then you go in there and produce them, and produce some food for them, and move some sticks around. If it's got some tops out in there, some bushes, get a mulcher down there.
Yeah, and you
clean
need
some of that stuff out of there.
Ideally, you time that rain, because here's the other thing is you're gonna, even if you pull the water off and it dries enough for you to get in there, you're still planting in most of the time. You're gonna be planting in some moisture and more soils, and you're gonna get germination probably pretty quick, and you're gonna get a young, little vulnerable sprout up, and you're gonna want to get a rain on it.
That's right.
Pretty quick.
It's like anything else, but you're banking on hurricane range. You're banking on
that time of year. That's right.
You're banking on late, and so it and the timing. Just look back and really knowing your own place when that hole usually gets wet. I like to have my seed produced by November. Okay, so then what I try to do, Brandon, I take November the 1st and I back it up, whether it's 120 days, 60 or 70 days. I back it up. So okay, this is the latest I can.
Yeah, so that backs you up to July 1st. So
Right.
then you start looking at how soon you had to do that other work to be able to get in there to plant
get in there to get it.
Burn down, dry it out.
Think about it. Use November in the South is what I try to use by the head, because usually by about the 15th of November we get our first frost. So once you get your first frost, that stuff's about over with, and as far as it's growing. So you don't want to get it too late. And one thing I do like about, and I tell people, as cheap as it is, if you do have a failure and you do get some armyworms eat it, you can plant that stuff up to August, September.
Yeah, you can replant.
You can replant, and if you'll keep an eye on it, then you get out of that armyworm range. Now remember this:
you'll be vulnerable to a freeze. Maybe
you're vulnerable to a freeze, and you're vulnerable for your driest part of your year.
Yeah,
September,
but you can't control that at that point. If you have that failure, whatever,
But if
you replant and you're just still hoping it.
But if you're planting in an old slough bed or a wetland type site, water levels are not real far in the ground, so you could probably make it. So anyway, it's like I said, timing, watching things, very easy to plant. It's really, a four-wheeler and a hand seeder. I've planted a pile of it. You have too. I mean, so you can do it. Now, if you walk through it, and when I tell you a mud flat, you still have water laying in there.
Yeah.
You go through there and put it out, and all of those millets I've dealt will take that mud and they'll start sprouting. And if you can maybe mix them up, get you some brown top, get you some Jap, get you some golden, and mix it. Now that Chihuahua's, like I said, it's 120 days. I wouldn't want to do a lot of mixing with it because it's going to be so much taller. Where a Jap millet will get 3 to 4 feet at the most, Chihuahua's going to get 6 or 7 feet tall because it's got a bigger head. Mm-hmm. So it's got to grow a bigger stem to hold it vertical in the air. So it works that way. But the main thing is seed production for those ducks to eat. The way to kill ducks is to kill them from their stomach, from their hunger, from what they want to do. They come in here to eat. They've been shot at from Canada all the way to Mississippi, if they're using the Mississippi Flyway. So think about it, having them a good place, and kind of think about where you're going to hunt it at. Your south wind and north wind, there's different things that you could look at,
that goes when you're laying out how, laying a hole out.
And stuff, and go to blinds. And now that is more critical when we get into the next part. We start talking about impoundments, and then you kind of know. But mud flat wise, Brent, you think of anything else? That's about what you got to do. Control that. Control the water, getting it off.
The timing of those things.
The timing, getting your stuff planted.
Because it's a long time before you're actually using it. And the other thing is, you mentioned that you can replant because you're targeting November 1st. Well, look, you're going to shoot ducks all the way through the end of January. So you've got a pretty big window for when that utilization of the food is. Even to early December, you just run up against the dry time of year.
Yes.
And that first, if you get an early freeze, that might could hurt you if you haven't gone all the way out to maturity. But still, there's a big window of when you're going to utilize it.
Right. And that's, some other things to look at too. You've got, it's a flip of a coin on some things. But if
shoot, man, we're talking about duck hunting. You can do all this, and you're still at the mercy of.
Look, I planted 16 acres of corn and last year, and
it was sad last year.
It was sad. I mean, we didn't kill them till the last week of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, so we're sitting there watching, and nothing. But so you get into an impoundment, a duck impoundment, and there's a lot of stuff. There's some government programs out there, Brent, that you can get to help you kind of lay out a spot. Just say that you tried the beaver dam method and you really liked it, and you say, hey, I want to go the next step forward. This spot is producing ducks, but I want to be able to grow good crops, control the water better. And so what you do, you maybe all it takes is a one-sided levee. with a water control structure. Those structures are about $700-800 a piece. Mine was the one I bought last year. I think I paid $775 for it. The culvert was $230, so I had $1,000 in a 16-inch water control structure with a pipe. All right, I think it was only in about a 4-foot levee because that's all the height I needed to have that 18-inch, 24-inch optical, water level. And so once you put that in, and some people may already have them, but then you can actually farm it like you farm, production. You can plant corn like I planted corn for the last 3 years in a row. And what's happened last year, I think pressures, it was pretty close to waterway, and I think them little young boys on those jet boats or those
surface
drive inline boats. I've heard enough of them sound like dragsters.
Sound like a tractor pull.
They put enough heat on their surrounding areas that they started making the ducks started using my place as a roost, and they would fly in that corn. So I'm gonna have
You think
to
that
change.
vertical structure? We talked about it some,
Yeah,
and
they
there's
do.
there's a contention of people that say the downside or possible risk of planting corn in one is that they may use it as a roost.
I
'cause
targeted
it gets cover.
I targeted mallards. If you remember, Brent, the first years that we done that duck pond, we planted all millets, and we shot random. We had a lot of different ducks. We'd shoot a lot of gadwalls. We'd shoot green-winged teal. We'd shoot just a lot of different ducks. So then when I started going to straight corn, I was trying to target nothing but mallards. And you're going to learn mallards ain't you don't want to put a lot of betting weight on a mallard.
They'll let you down.
Yeah, they'll
Look,
let you down every year.
I'll go back to this all the time. I got a good buddy that had a quote that said, "Thank God for 2-year-old turkeys and gadwalls."
Yeah.
Because they save a lot of hunting seasons.
So, it's just what you're keying. Like I said, you'll know what ducks. Now, let's put it this way. If you've got wood ducks, the percentage of you recruiting a bunch of mallards is probably going to be slim. Maybe it's according to where you're at.
Yeah.
If you put the food there, you'll be surprised what could show up. Because, look, some of the best holes we got are gadwall holes.
Yeah.
Gadwalls,
Natural
wood
old
duck,
oxbows.
Yeah, but they'll come up in them. They feeding and
Gadwalls and widgeons use them. They're all
great spots. And big ducks. They work. They shoot well. And but anyway, you get into these bigger impoundments. I do like corn. I like corn, number one, because we can hide in it. Number two, you can hide the blind in it pretty good. And then just because
a lot of food.
the lot of food. But the cost and the time. You don't have to worry about army worms, but you got to worry about everything else. Fertilization, weed control. If you think about it now, one thing about a wet, moist soil area, and I'm calling it a moist soil because it's a wetter type area,
that's fertile ground.
You're going to have a bunch of weeds and grasses. So there again,
and a lot of them may be good. They may produce food.
But getting on that on the impoundments, same kind of deal. I'll spray down with glyphosate, and I'll kill everything I can kill. The unwanted stuff, and then I'll scratch it, or I'll come back and I have drilled. For some reason, the drill does not work great because it's so finicky. That seed is so small, but I have drilled it before, so you can drill it, but it is a very, very small seed. And so remember, if you're going to put it out with a four-wheeler or a whirlybird of some type, you want to calibrate it, gauge it, square you off a spot and work it around and that way. But remember this, you can always put out more if you have to, but once you put out too much, you can't never get it up. Yeah. That's the problem. You can't never do away with it. But like I said, those different millets work really well, and you can get into planting some grain sorghums and some different stuff. But
let me ask you this: is there a point? Let's say you've grown your millet. If let's say we're using millet, but is there a point you need to get to before you put water back on it? Does that plant need to get to a certain point relative to maturity before you put water on it?
It can take some flushes, and a lot of times it calls for a flush. What a flush is if you got some water you can put on to help it germinate, or if it's going through a drought in the late August, early September, you could flush it for a day, pump a bunch of water in it, let it out. But I mean, you start talking about a lot of time to do all this stuff.
But if you're trying to capture, if a guy's trying to capture a few rains, or even if he's going to pump in, but he's got to, so just.
And here's
you want to see
thing.
those heads, you want it to be at pretty close to maturity before
you need to think about. There's factors that we can't control. So why I'm really pushing on you to plant the right amount of seed up front, okay? When it says 25 pounds an acre, don't plant 35. If it says 20 pounds an acre, stick to 20. Fertilize it good. Make as much as you can, because once it makes, every bird,
songbirds,
doves, everything are looking for it. And I'm glad you said doves, because a lot of times people will mix some sunflowers and some brown top millet in there, and you can actually get a dove duck kind of combo. Now remember, you need to look at your federal regs. It's you can't manipulate
certain
stuff.
Yeah.
Now what you do is on you. But prime example, if you plant corn, you can't cut strips in it. Now it's just
not normal agriculture process.
I mean, it even gets to a point where you can't run cows in it because they can manipulate it. It's really weird. I don't know how tough they would be on you, but be mindful. Be mindful of it, because look, them federal tickets and federal regs are, your local buddies, local game wardens, they don't have any control over it if you go that route. But think about the millet. You can't really. The millet's pretty safe because you can't really manipulate millet. Like I said, the main thing is you want to produce seed heads. You want to produce everything you can, and then what I try to do, Brent, if you do have water, or you build one that has control, whether you have a well, and what I do, I've got a creek 500 feet, 600 feet away, and I cleared it, put a boat ramp in, and I call it a blue hole. We back a 8-inch water pump in it.
And PTO drive
with a tractor, and we'll put that on the thing too. But we pump that water 600 feet, fill that pond up. Takes about 4 or 5 days to put 16 acres underwater, and it's is it worth it for the amount of ducks you kill? I don't know, but I tell you what it is. We went back after the season, and to watch several thousand ducks come in there and know that you're doing something.
Yeah,
that's
you're feeding those ducks going and
coming.
They went. We gotta push the ducks late, and they had somewhere to rest and eat, and then coming back. Get a lot of blue wings and a lot of ducks coming back north.
And seeing the neat stuff, like we started gathering. We're in kind of the north portion of Mississippi, but we started getting some whistling tree ducks out of South America. And the first, I had a pair of them show up. I think it was 2 or 4. I can't remember, Brent. But we showed up, and I'm like, what is this? And so we took pictures of them. I called Dr. Kaminsky, which used to be one of my professors when I was at Mississippi State, and he said he knew right off the bat. And he's like, well, where was that duck at? And he said, we get reports that we're coming up into Louisiana, but we've never had them come this north up into Mississippi. So it's pretty new. Now, what was that, Brent, 150 after this year?
Yeah, it's a lot.
So in 4 years, you hear that term, Brent, imprint. It's for real.
Yeah.
The term imprint, guys, is for real. They will imprint on food, they will imprint on pressure, and they'll imprint on a safe place like nesting and stuff like that. So that's why those whistling tree ducks are coming up here, because they're having a good brooding and nesting, and they're having good hatches up here that's protected, and they're more.
Yeah, they're moving further and further north.
They're a cavity builder. Now we can't shoot any of them because they're not here during the season, but it's pretty neat to see.
Yeah.
To see that lap over. Something that wasn't happening 30 years ago was happening now. It's pretty positive.
Yeah.
But Brent, I think gives us a chance to talk a little bit about, you got your food. Just say you controlled your water, everything's perfect, okay? You made seed, you're sitting there. The pressure part, Brent, that's a major...
Pressure's a big deal with ducks.
It's a major deal. Just because you feel like, say you got 50 or 100 ducks over there, don't go get them up every day just because you want to see them. Sneak in, look at them if they're there, don't shoot them. Whatever you do, don't shoot them on the roost. You shoot them on the roost, they're gone. I can just promise you.
You can booger up a roost.
You can booger them up forever. But just be slick, kind of like your deer or your turkey. Sneak in there, look at them. Don't get them up. Go in there and
just don't disturb them unnecessarily.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I mean, you're going to disturb them enough when you're doing it so you can hunt them and shoot them.
You get to pounding that steel at them and get them. But
one thing you do is we'll shoot them when you got them. When you got them, we'll shoot them and get out of there, and they're able to come in and feed.
The neatest things now, and it's legal, is putting those cell cameras out there on the pond.
Yeah,
Then you don't have to go look at them. You put those cell cameras. And Brent puts them wide angled, and it's really cool. It's a great tool that you don't even have to go down there and say, hey, Chris, there's 150, greenheads.
Yeah, it's been 7 or 8 years ago now,
so
but I
take off
back before we had cell cameras.
Yeah.
I put some trail cameras out on stakes in a few places out there, and I got some cool pictures.
And I kind of do on one of the ponds that we set up, we kind of made a deer duck combo. We had a deer field sits off to the right of it, so we had a shooting house where you could see onto the duck pond, but you could get out of it and not scare the ducks. And it works so great. You can go in there and you film them, you go look at them, you can watch them, plus you deer hunt at the same time. So you can use some things that's if you do try the mud flats, or you say, look, I'm 100% fixing to make a duck impoundment, do some research, watch your winds, kind of know where your ducks are coming from. That's a big thing. If we know most time those ducks are going to come from one area, unless you're lucky and you got several different roost locations that they're coming to your hole to eat. And but it's
and it took a year or two. It took second year before ducks really. So don't write it off if you do all this in the first year. You don't have much response.
The first year, I had 7 or 8 ducks. The first year. On that 16-acre pond. Remember that, Brent?
Yeah, there wasn't many.
The second year, we had a couple hundred wind up showing up. Remember, we didn't shoot it the first 2 years.
That's right.
The third year,
it loaded up.
Now
I think we had some good. We had some good pushes. We had good fronts. It was a good year.
Yeah. So and then from there on, there's no question they imprint the place. They come every year.
Yeah.
Now it's according to the pressure they get on the waterways. These kids run these duck boats and running up and down the rivers and jumping them up out of their sanctuaries, and all this is. Anyway, I think they've changed some rules on some of that stuff. They don't let them. They're fixing to tighten up on some of that stuff. That's all the federal regs. But the pressure and the food is a big thing. You hear, I guess. We talk about it on everything.
Every species. Because it matters, every species.
It does.
It matters to me, man. You start shooting at me when I'm trying to eat, I'm going to change my habits too.
The two things that we do is dove hunt and duck hunt. Wouldn't you say?
Look, it's fun. There's a social aspect to it that you don't really have with other types of hunting. It's something you can share. It's a little more interactive. And I think that's why it appeals so much when we're younger too. You think about all of them. He talks about the young guys running up and down the waterway. We were those young guys one time too.
I
didn't have a surface drive boat.
We didn't have a surface drive boat, and I didn't have a daddy spend $30,000 on it.
But anyway. There's a reason it appeals so much. There's a lot of fun, and look, it's something when right as it starts, the sky gets gray. It's just starting to get light. Hearing ducks,
and you hear them whistling coming.
I mean, look, it gets in your bones now.
It does, and it's awesome to see them cupped in and coming. And for y'all that out there that duck hunt, you know what I'm talking about. When you hit them, whack, 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 and they turn, and they coming in, and I mean,
there's just a lot to like about it, man. The element of having a retriever, the dog element of it.
And look, there's people out there listening to this podcast that's got some unbelievable areas. They just have never said, you know what, I'm gonna clear 5-6 acres of those woods and put a duck pond. But let me tell you something. If you've got that place, you need to try it. It's worth it for your family and you. Easy. I mean, I can take the dog out there. I can almost wear lacrosse boots to hunt, get in the duck blind, shoot ducks when they're there. It's as fun as.
And even if you're not wild about duck hunting yourself, if you've
Yeah.
got an area on a property that, like I said, if it's notorious for being wet or having bad drainage,
What else you gonna
can
do?
do something to add value.
Look, what else you gonna do? If it's growing willow trees, and it's growing button bush, and it's growing crap, what else are you gonna do with it besides fight the beavers every year?
Yeah.
You're not. I mean,
There's a lot of old, what used to be in fish ponds right here
yes. Oh man, I mean, them are great
that
too.
back in ducks.
But I mean, I'm just telling you, it's a, it's a very big game. It's a big game in the Delta, big game in Arkansas, and it's very popular around here. I mean, you go to any of these sporting goods stores, and they'll tell you them kids coming.
Or
there,
from a marketing standpoint, they're gonna spend the money to you. So yeah, there's a lot of good reasons
waterfowl.
for it.
I mean, but it won't tell you, if you got a good place, it's hard to beat as far as the fun.
Yeah, and the big reason we want to talk about it now is now's the time you need to be thinking about it. Now,
That's right.
if you're gonna,
And plus, you think about it, if you, and I'm saying you got a perfect area, let's try it the cheap way for a year or two. Let's dig a beaver dam. Let's spend $1,000. Okay, let's get a machine in there. You may own your own machine. Let's drain it.
Drain it, plant it.
Let's see what ducks
plug
come
it
to
back up,
Plug it back up.
or let the beavers do it.
Yeah, and then you say, well, this is pretty fun. Let's go to the next step. Let's put a levee. Let's put a control structure.
Yeah.
Let's dig a well.
Yeah, that's a good point
Let's
too. You
do-
don't have to commit all at once. You don't have to go all in
once.
at first. You can.
Right. And-
Pardon the pun. You can test the waters a little bit.
I done my research before I put my first one, personal one in. I done my research on where it was at, and I looked at how many roosts were around me, because the roost around you control how many ducks that you're going to get every day. Okay, wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah. Look,
After you
it's
get
like
the
in
push.
deer. We start talking about proximity
Yeah.
to cover.
Right.
Yeah.
And so your roost all around you, I knew I had 5 good roosts around me, so I figured that when the birds got here and the local birds are already here, that I would have enough birds to shoot every day.
Yeah.
And it does well till they find out where the roosts are, and then they want to make a Facebook picture. But anyway, it's all fun. Look, man, if that's what they want to do.
Well, look, that's a good episode, and it's
It
right on time. It's timely.
But we'll have some stuff about the flood control structures, and some of the seed mixes and blends. And but yeah, it's a fun time. That waterfowling's pretty good. And I want to come back and do it during the season. Let's come back and do another one.
We may have to come back and do something with that shirt. Put that shirt on blast. Pretty good looking T-shirt.
That is a good looking shirt. I look good in blue.
That's what they say, huh?
I do.
All right.
We appreciate you.
See you.
Thank you.